首先我想感谢关昌先生和赵峰先生邀请我过来，这次来参加世界上最新的丝绸之路展览，真是一个乐趣，也是一个怎么说是被感动了，因为有很多东西我在书上我看到了文字，没有看到真片，没有看到照片，就是昨天晚上稍微去看一下，所以感到非常的感动啊，所以今天感到就是十分光荣。I'm going to speak in English because I'm a little nervous, and I'd like to say thank you to the translators. I've put a little bit of Chinese, so maybe it's easy to understand. So Silk Road exhibitions around the world. In 1877, we all know this, Ferdinand von Richthofen spoke for the first time about the Silk Road. And the idea was to describe the trade and communication network across Eurasia. Let's think about the world in 1877. What was Richthofen's world like? In the 1850s, there was a plan to put a telegraph underneath the Atlantic Ocean. It worked okay, but it didn't work properly until 1866. In 1866, the transatlantic telegraph was, to quote Arthur C. Clarke, the science fiction novelist, the equivalent of the Apollo space project. It was like putting the man on the moon. It's fantastic, yes? So think of the man on the moon and the Silk Road at the same time. Yeah? Seriously, it's a nice idea, yeah? And this also ties in with Mr. Bai's talk just now about the dream society, the dream world, because a lot of the Silk Road is about the dream. What you don't have, what you want in the next world, what you want tomorrow, what you don't want today. So many of these things. Also in 1871, the travel agent Thomas Cook, for the first time, was offering tourism around the world. Yeah? Travel the world in style. This boat here, the Oceanic, was launched in 1871, the most beautiful and the most modern ship upon the waves. In 1872 or 1873, we have the publication of the world-famous novel Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne in France. And this is the route around the world in 80 days taken by Phileas Fogg from San Francisco to New York to London to Suez to Mumbai to Calcutta, Hong Kong, and to Yokohama. It's mind-blowing. You think of the Silk Road and around the world in 80 days, it's just amazing. 1873, there is the first International Congress of Orientalists. People want to get together to discuss the Eastern world. These are just the first 14. Paris in 1873, London in 1874, St. Petersburg in 1876, Florence in 1878, Berlin in 1881, Leiden in 1883, Vienna in 1886, Stockholm Christiania in 1889, London in 1892 again, Geneva in 1894, Paris in 1897, Rome in 1899, Hamburg in 1904, and the first one outside of Europe in Algiers, Algeria, 1905. So although it says international, it's not exactly international. It's very European international. But it's getting there, slowly. The focus of the first International Congress of Orientalists was on philology and archaeology. And in the report of the Congress, there are several illustrations, many of Japan, but also this map of prehistoric Asia. So you can see some routes there, different routes from the ones that we look at when we look at the Silk Road. The second International Congress of Orientalists took place in London. And here are some scholars looking at the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum. And this was published in the Illustrated London News. This is news that is getting into the mainstream educated press. This is really quite spectacular. And it's the media. The media is supporting the Silk Road. Well, not the Silk Road, but the media is supporting the culture. They're learning about the culture of the world. The Rosetta Stone discovered in Egypt in 1799 and discovered by JeanPaul Young, the Frenchman, in the 1820s, you can see 3 different scripts: Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic, and Ancient Greek. This was a breakthrough. This was so exciting that even here, over 50 years later, they are still wanting to go and see this and to remark upon how wonderful it is. So before Richthofen in 1877, there was already scholarly interest in Eurasian and Eurasian Egyptian links. In the 19th century, we have European and Chinese philologists who were looking at texts and inscriptions, and including coins, which is what I work on. Some remarkable philologists, East and West, JeanPaul Young on the left, and Luo Zhengyu, a little bit younger, also did fantastic work on languages, looking at oracle bones and then also at Tangut later. But if also we look at the Egyptologists in the 1880s, they are having discussions about Egyptian hieroglyphs and about Chinese writing. Are there links between Egypt and China? Some people were very skeptical and some people were very supportive. Here we have 3 Egyptologists, Samuel Birch in the UK, Gaston Maspero in France, and Flinders Petrie in the UK. Why do I mention the Egyptologists so much? Because it's only one generation from Egyptology to Sinology. The Egyptologists wanted their sons to study Chinese. They couldn't do it themselves. They spent so much time learning the languages that they needed to study ancient Egypt and the Eastern Mediterranean. They didn't have time to learn Chinese in one lifetime. So they wanted the children to learn it so they could help them. So for example, here we have the Maspero family. The father, Gaston Maspero, was an Egyptologist. 2 of his sons went to East Asia. The first, Georges Maspero, was one of the founders of the École Française d'Extrême-Orient. And Henri Maspero, who we all know, was the sinologist who worked on some of the documents found by Orelstein in northwest China. So father to son. In 1886, at the 7th International Congress of Orientalists held in Vienna, Orelstein met Rudolf Hernley, and Rudolf Hernley suggested that Stein go to Khotan in search of links between East and West. East and West have to meet somewhere. Where would they meet? Hernley said, they meet in Khotan. So Orelstein went, and the rest is history. But we must look after that history. That history, whether we think it is good history or bad history, we must look after it and make sure that we preserve the history that we have. Stein himself very rarely used the term Silk Road. He used the term Khotan, Chinese Turkestan, ancient Khotan, Desert Cathay, Central Asia, westernmost China, Serindia, Central Asia, westernmost China again, innermost Asia, Central Asia, and Gansu. Even when he was there, when the northwest of China was known as Xinjiang province, it isn't now it's known as Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, he did not use the name Xinjiang province. He gave it one of these romantic names, but he never gave it the romantic name of the Silk Road. Or if he did, it was very rarely. Unlike Sven Hedin. Sven Hedin talked about the Silk Road quite a lot. Sven Hedin from Sweden. So maybe people use different words for different things. Okay, looking at exhibitions, 25 paintings from Dunhuang were exhibited at the British Museum from June 1910 to April 1912. I don't know if this is the earliest exhibition of Stein's collection, but it's one of the earliest. There were also exhibitions of textiles, but I don't know that there are any pictures of those. In 1911, some pieces collected by Orelstein were displayed at the Festival of Empire in Crystal Palace in South London. This was a huge, huge display of things from around the world. 1914, there was a very big exhibition at the British Museum. There was a new wing, a new building, and many things were on display, including many things that Stein had brought from Xinjiang and from Dunhuang. And then in the 20th century, things happen. We have war, we have revolution, and we have the Cold War. Now, some of the younger generation in the audience don't remember the Cold War. But I was born in the 1960s, and the world stopped at Berlin. The world stopped at the Iron Curtain, and we didn't have internet. If you didn't have the books, and you didn't have somebody who knew about that part of the world, it was a black hole on the map. The propaganda works both ways, okay? And then in the 1970s, you begin to get reform and opening up, not just in China, but in many parts of the world. The question of world peace comes up. World peace, it's very difficult to have world peace. It's very, very difficult. Can you revive the tradition of the Silk Road? Tradition of the Silk Road, okay, interesting. And then UNESCO comes in. And I think UNESCO did something really very wonderful here, because UNESCO had a big project, a Silk Road, Roads of Dialogue, a 10-year project from 1988 to 1997. And the basic purpose of this project was to highlight the complex cultural interactions arising from the encounters between East and West, and helping to shape the rich common heritage of the Eurasian peoples. This is probably about as close to world peace as you can get. It's a very, very big and ambitious dream. So when we talk about dream society, I think it's a very big dream. And in retrospect, I think it was a very good thing to do. Personally, I had a friend who went on one of the expeditions, and I was so jealous. So UNESCO had 5 scientific expeditions, and these expeditions combined science with media coverage. This is also very important, to do not just the work, but to do the promotion of the work, to do the telling everybody about the work. The first expedition was the desert route from Xian to Kashgar in 1990. The second was the maritime route from Venice to Osaka, 1990 to 1991. The third was the steppe route in Central Asia, also in 1991. The fourth was the nomads route in Mongolia in 1992. And the fifth was the Buddhist route in Nepal in 1995. I just look at these a little bit more closely because they're very ambitious. The first route, 21 foreign experts, 4 members of the International Consultative Committee for the Silk Roads, 8 Chinese experts, 8 representatives of the foreign press, 19 countries represented. There was an international seminar in Urumqi. There was a symposium at Dunhuang and the Silk Roads. And some years later, there was in Paris a very important exhibition, Serindia, Land of Buddha, 10 Centuries of Art on the Silk Road, which took place in 1995 to 1996. The second one, the maritime route from Venice to Osaka, there was a voyage of 27,000 kilometers in the ship Fulk al-Salama. That means the ship of peace. And the ship was loaned by His Majesty Qaboos, the Sultan of Oman. It had 100 scientists, 45 journalists, and 34 countries were represented. In 154 days, it visited 21 ports in 16 countries and spent 54 days at sea. And there were 2 symposia. There was another exhibition at the end of this, In Search of Sinbad, the Maritime Silk Route, in 1994. The third route, 1991, the steppe route in Central Asia, 5,000 kilometers, took 9 weeks, from Turkmenistan, from Ashgabat in Turkmenistan to Almaty in Kazakhstan. 46 foreign experts, 74 Soviet experts, 26 representatives of the media, and 23 countries represented. They're growing. The Silk Road is growing. There's a seminar in Khiva in Uzbekistan, 1991. There's a seminar in Almaty, also in 1991. And again, this feeds into the exhibition in Paris, Serindia, Land of Buddha, 10 Centuries of Art on the Silk Road, in 1995 and 96. And also established in Uzbekistan, the International Institute for Central Asian Studies. So things are growing. The fourth one, the Nomads Route in Mongolia, 1992, 44 foreign experts, 11 Mongol specialists, 28 representatives of the media, 25 countries represented, and they covered 3,500 kilometers from Kobdo in the west to Ulaanbaatar in the east. And there was a seminar, an international seminar in Ulaanbaatar in 1992. And there was also, in September 1998, a few years later, the establishment of the International Institute for the Study of Nomadic Civilizations. So giving a lot of formal respect to the peoples who are not settled in one place, but the peoples who move. What about this big exhibition in Paris in 1994 to 1996, which was inspired by the desert route and the steppe route? It was curated by somebody who's very famous to many of us, Jacques Gies, who was the head curator of the Musée Guimet, and Monique Cohen, also very famous to many of us, of the Bibliothèque Nationale de France. And it presented for the first time in the Western world major pieces from collections of Central Asian Buddhist art from several museums around the world. Not just one museum, several museums. This exhibition we have outside, also from international museums, but maybe the one in Paris was one of the first. And the curator said, "We are concerned here with a region for which we have no specific name, hence the use of several terms, including Serindia, Central Asia, and even Silk Roads." It's very big. What do you call it? Another thing that was very important for UNESCO and also for the British Museum, because we had them too, fellowships and scholarships to encourage the younger generation to start to learn. Iko Hirayama, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador and President of the National University of Tokyo for the Fine Arts and Music, funded 100 young scholars, 10 scholars per year for 10 years, 1990 to 1999, which ended with a symposium in Xi'an in 2002. He also encouraged scholars to look at coins. In the coin department at the British Museum, we had one Hirayama trainee curator a year for 10 years. This was very useful for us. The Xian Declaration in 2002, signed by Mr. Jalali, the president of UNESCO General Conference, and Professor Hirayama, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, was requesting UNESCO and the relevant member states to consider inscribing the Silk Roads on the World Heritage List. It would be the first time that a designated World Heritage Site, the Silk Road as one site, crosses the boundaries of many nations. The cooperation between member states necessary to put forward this proposal would in itself be a manifestation of international cooperation and a contribution to dialogue between peoples. Now, Zhou Laoshi asked me to put together a list of Silk Road exhibitions around the world. Just a little task, a little task. Actually, it's very difficult to do this because where do you start, where do you stop? Where does Silk Road begin? Where does Silk Road end? What subjects, etc., etc. So we've heard already some this morning from Korea, from Director Bai. And I thought I have to start somewhere. So I thought I would start with the International Dunhuang Project News, which Susan Whitfield gathered over many, many years, over 20 years. And I looked at all of the notices she put in about Silk Road exhibitions. Now, this is not complete. It's mostly the English language ones, but it's a starting point. So perhaps we can collaborate and work together to make a better list. So these are my findings. So in this list, I found over 100 exhibitions from 1996 to 2018. Obviously, it's a very, very beginning list, preliminary list. And I want to stress the Silk Road exhibitions are always collaborations. I think Susan Whitfield would also say this. She's very sorry that she can't be here today. But Silk Road, anything is always a collaboration, because Silk Road exhibitions are not just displays of objects. They are built upon skills, knowledge, and experience acquired over decades. It's very, very, very difficult to become an expert in Silk Road anything, because you have to spend a lot of time learning before you can actually participate and do anything on a significant level. So Silk Road exhibitions around the world, a list. I can't go through all 100, you'd fall asleep. So in the list, I've highlighted 3. In yellow, we have Silk Road. In green, we have Dunhuang. And in blue, we have Buddhism. These are just in the titles, okay? So 1996, you can see, we have a mixture. Silk Road, Dunhuang Buddhism, 2000 as well. It changes over the years. Buddhism, Silk Road, 2001, 2002, also photograph exhibitions. 2004, 2006, 2007, quite a lot of Silk Road. 2008, more Silk Road and Dunhuang. 2009 and 2010, Silk Road and Dunhuang, they're leading the way. 2011 to 12, Silk Road, yes. Dunhuang, yes. Buddhism, yes, yes, yes. 2013, Silk Road, Dunhuang, and Buddhism. Dunhuang is leading in this particular year. 2014, Silk Road is leading, Dunhuang as well. This is all, it's very simplistic, okay? 2016, oh my goodness, Silk Road is the word to use in 2016. In 2017, Silk Road is definitely the world. And 2018, we're beginning to have more Dunhuang again. This doesn't take into consideration many other exhibitions. Why? Well, possibly because we have a new Silk Road. The Silk Road of the 21st century, the Belt Road Initiative. And this has had a lot of attention in China, it's had a lot of attention outside of China, and everybody is paying attention. Everybody is looking to see what is happening. It's a very interesting time. I'm going to stop there and say thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the conference. 谢谢大家。